So this one is The Miscalculations of Lightning Girl, and I really love this book, but it's one of those books that I say don't try this at home. So this is actually based on true fact in the sense that some people, when they have a terrible accident, like are hit by lightning, or they hit their heads, something amazing happens and they become really good at something. So this is about a young girl who has been hit by lightning, and after that she is a genius at math. But she's so brilliant, she doesn't even go to school anymore. She just connects with all these amazing math people online until her grandma gets worried about her and says, all right, I'm going to send you to middle school. I want you to make one friend, read one book that isn't about maths, and do one activity that isn't math related. And this girl really doesn't want to go. But when she goes to school, she does make new friends, and she starts to volunteer at a dog shelter. And the first dog she meets, which is a dog that may be put down, is a dog called Pi. Well, if you're a math genius, who are you going to love but a dog called Pi? So this is how the dog called Pi changes her life. But I do love this book, and it is, I mean, there was a man who apparently jumped into a swimming pool, hit his head on the bottom, and all of a sudden became brilliant at playing the piano. But he also went blind. So as I said, don't try this at home just to become brilliant. It doesn't work. So, Penderwicks at Last. If any of you love the Penderwicks and you enjoy, this is a whole series, starting with a book called The Penderwicks. If you haven't read it, do read it. This is a really gentle, I would say old-fashioned in the sense that it just is looking at a family who go to, who can't get to their normal holiday home, and so they end up at a place called Arundel. And they meet this amazing boy, and they just have a great time. And it's just all about the relationship of the family. This is now the family that has grown up, and some of the older kids are getting married. They're all going back to Arundel, and the youngest child is experiencing this magical place for the first time. I really love this series, so really recommend those. If you like a really fun read, Super Gifted by Gordon Korman. This is the second book in I think it might be a trilogy in the future, but anyway, it's there was a book called Ungifted, about a young boy who by some accident ends up going to a school for super gifted kids, and he is absolutely not super gifted. And all of the kids start to realize that straight away and keep wondering why this boy is in the school. They do all these amazing robotics programs, and all that this boy can do is find the stickers to go on the robot, because he really isn't that bright, but he's fun, and he loves taking risks, and he has great crazy ideas. And so he ends up making fantastic friendships in this school, and in the end all the teachers try and keep him in the school because he's changed the nature of the school completely with all of the fun elements that he brings into the school. But he is sent back to his ordinary middle school, but one of the super gifted boys has gone with him because he's desperate to fail at everything. He's so successful, he's never failed, and so he's delighted to be in middle school, and his aim is to fail a class. And so this is their relationship, and it's so funny. I really, really enjoyed it. Jennifer Choldenko, Al Capone Throws Me a Curve. If you haven't read the Alcatraz series, again, you must. I love these books. And this one is the last in the series, and it's masterful. If you know the story, you will know that, now my brain has gone, here we go. Oh, that's right, that Moose Flanagan lives on Alcatraz with his family. His dad is a guard in the prison, but in this book, his dad is maybe going to become the head of the prison, the top guard, the prison, what would you call it? Anyway, the head of the prison. And some of the convicts want him to become the head of the prison, and some people really don't. Moose has a sister, Natalie. She's on the autism spectrum. She has autism, and she is growing up. And with her growing up, there comes all sorts of issues for the family. How do they come to terms with the fact that this young girl is growing up into a young woman? And what is Moose going to do to protect her? If you think that these books were exciting before, this one really goes into the cells of Alcatraz, and it is so exciting, so chilling, and the ending is perfect. So that's Al Capone Throws Me a Curve. Another great adventure story. Fabulous mystery story. This is by Laura Ruby, who won a National Book Award. She's a really good writer. And this is called York, and it's based in a sort of a steampunk New York. There's a group of kids who live in this amazing building, which was built by these people called the Morning Stars. And they created New York sort of like we know it now, but not quite. And it has these incredible creatures that they developed that come out and clean the streets. And they have kind of robots that run the trains and the subway and everything. So it's slightly like our New York, but slightly not. But somebody called Darnell Slant is coming to buy up the building that these children live in. And he's going to destroy it and destroy all of the Morning Star heritage. And they are distraught. And so they realize that they have to, in a month, solve a cipher, a puzzle that has been hidden all around New York, a bit like the hidden Mickey Mouses in Disneyland, for years and years. And they've only got a month to do it. And this is how they start going about doing it. And the weird thing is, the more they try and solve the cipher, the more New York, the strange robots, the strange buildings, seem to be helping them to do it. It is really exciting. So that's York. Okay, and then lastly, I want to point out Jacqueline Woodson, Harbour Me. Jacqueline Woodson is one of our best writers. She is incredible. And this is a fascinating story. And just imagine this. This is a bunch of 6th graders who have 2 periods at the end of their school on Friday. And their teacher one day just takes them down the hall and says, I'm not going to teach you for this last period. You are just going to sit in a room and you can do what you want. Can you imagine that happening in your school? So one of the girls actually has an old-fashioned tape recorder that her dad gave her. And so she takes the tape recorder into the room. And at first they're just reading books and they're chatting, and then they start sharing their stories. And one of the boys, his father has actually, we don't know, but we think he may have been deported back to Mexico. And he doesn't know what has happened to his dad, and he's very worried and very traumatized. And as he shares his story, all of the other children start to share theirs. And this really is about the power of sharing your story. It's great. Jason Reynolds, I don't know if any of you have read Ghost, which has a yellow cover, but it looks very much like this. But this is his new, so Ghost was a National Book Award finalist. It's an incredible book. And it's about a young boy who ends up being on a running team after his father having actually pulled out a gun on his entire family and gone to prison for it. But this boy ends up finding himself in this running team. Well, this is the story of the rest of the running teams. There was Patina, so we've had her book, and now this is Sonny. Sonny is the fastest boy on the team. He seems to be perfect at everything, and we find out in this book why he is driven to be perfect, and whether this is really his dream to be on the running team or someone else's, and what he really wants to do. And if you love rhythm, if you love hip hop, if you love music, if you love dancing, I think you will really understand Sonny. These are beautifully written books. Can't put them down. Okay, and then finally, I just want to point out class action. Teachers, I apologize that I'm showing your children this, but I found this a hysterically funny book, and it has a lot of information about the judicial system. So this is about a young boy who sees himself and his sister struggling to complete their homework, and he decides that he is going to say that he doesn't believe that homework is good, and he meets a very old grumpy lawyer who lives opposite, very old man, and the old man offers to help him have a class action lawsuit to sue the county for to try and stop children from being overworked with homework. It is very, very funny, and they end up having to take their lawsuit right up to the Supreme Court. Well, with all of the issues right now about the Supreme Court, I think it's fascinating to learn how that court works through such a funny book. So this is Class Action. All right. So let's have a look at a few more. We're going to have a look at some slightly older books now. So I'm going to start off with Grenade. So this is by Alan Gratz. He's actually going to be at Book Passage on Friday night at 7 o'clock. So he is an amazing writer. So if you read Refugee, which I think a lot of you will have done, you will know that he writes very intense books about war and very difficult situations. This is his new book, and it's called Grenade. And this is set in the Second World War, and it's set in Okinawa, which is an island near Japan. And in the Second World War, when the American army was trying to take Japan, Okinawa was the next closest island, and there were fierce battles. We feel very affectionate towards this book because one of the people who organizes the book fairs, Mari, her mother helped with all of the research in this book because she was there as a child. So we feel very passionate about this book because it's telling a story that hasn't really been told before about the experience of the Okinawans on Okinawa when it was invaded by the Americans. It had already been taken over by the Japanese, and the Okinawans felt very different to the Japanese. And so there are so many things going on. So this is a young boy who believes that he is a coward. And he thinks the reason for this is that through his ancestry, he has kind of taken on a sort of a cowardly spirit. But of course, we discover that he is not cowardly at all in his effort to help people, to approach the Americans, and eventually to save his sister. Oh my goodness, this has so much psychological information about what war does to us, how it affects us, how it affects other people, and done so beautifully. So I really recommend Grenade. It's a full-on war story, so if you don't like war stories, you know, probably this would not be for you. Okay, I think that might be it. I think there's a few that I've missed out, but I think we're plenty to talk about. I really do hope you enjoy your book fair. You enjoy reading all the books. If you ever come into Book Passage, we love to hear the books that you've enjoyed. We love to hear what really works for you, and we love finding you more books that you'll enjoy. So thanks very much for listening.